Welcome to another edition of More Bad News, brought to you as always by Camel Cigarettes. Take the Camels Challenge, smoke Camels for 30 days and see for yourself. Don't believe what people tell you. See for yourself what this product can do for you. It'll change your life one way or the other. Anyway, it's been another week of very bad news, I guess. We start there. Yeah, and bad news for the Jews. Don Jr. said that the American Jews better get their act together, But Jon Stewart commented that he didn't even think that remark made it to the top 10. Kanye West, yay, was the winner of this week's march towards chaotic anti-Semitism. And I wanted to tie that in today to our program. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. I also wanted to make sure that I didn't go over too much. I'm setting an alarm. Last week, one of the things when you don't have a script, you just go on forever. So this week I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to take a look at different textbooks, different American history textbooks. And so let me just, I have 15,000 volumes in this house. So I'm like a book billionaire. I'm 75 years old. I've got more books than I'll ever be able to read. But it's a very peculiar collection. Obviously, I've been collecting books all my life, and so it's a kind of a unusual collection. It's not your standard library collection. So let's start off here with this. This is America's Story. Now, this was a high school textbook that was used in the 1960s. This one came from Brooklyn, New York, from a public school in Brooklyn, New York. It was last taken out of the library in 1970. How I came to own it, I don't know, but I wanted to show it. So this is a textbook used for high school students, and they start off by saying that what is America? Here's this, yeah. Okay, so America is a nation of 200 million. It's a vast country. It's a land blessed with an abundance of natural resources. It's a leader in trade and industry whose farms and factories supply the whole world. It's a republic governed under the oldest constitution in the world. It's a country in which important officers in national, state, and local governments are chosen by and are responsible to its citizens. It is a world power which seeks peace and stands ready to defend liberty. So there you go. And then they have a picture of all the state flags. This is a textbook that is intended to instill pride in young students. That's one thing that we might want to study history for. The textbook that I used when I was in college in the I started college in 1960 for 4 or 5, and I guess this was 1966, 1967, something like that. And this was the most commonly used textbook. It was The Growth of the American Republic by Morrison and Commager. It's about, this is volume 1, there's 2 volumes, 1 and 2. It's about 700 pages. And what's interesting about it is that there are no pictures, there's no study guides, there's no reviews, there are no quizzes. It's just, back in the day when I went to as an undergraduate, they expected you to be able to read and figure it out for yourself. So that was mine. And of course, the focus of that, if you saw it, is the development of the American Republic. So the focus of that history is really on American history, the American Republic. They're really not interested in in the rest of the world, or in minorities, or the other things like that. They're interested basically in the history of the development of the American Republic. Um, and here, this one is the people's history, how it's in. This is the working man's history, the socialist history, looking at minorities and suffering, and the struggle for against oppression. This is the people's history. It focuses on the struggle of people for equality and fairness, etc., against a country where there is an elite that is terrible, and you have the billionaires controlling things, and the railroads, and it's a struggle. It's the struggle of little people against the powers and forces that be. This is another. This is a early version. It's very, very good piece of work, is on Europe and America, and this is a history of America in the context of the Western world, of Europe and the Western world. So when they deal with the American Revolution, they deal with the French Revolution, with that whole period in history, and the discussion is how American history is part of European history, of Western history. That one. And this one is an updated version of that, really. It's The Nation Among Nations, America's Place in the World, right? So that you have, again, another way of looking at American history. And this is, you won't find this in a lot of scholars' libraries, but this is the Providential History of America. And this is the most popular of the Christian homeschool books. And if you see that, there's George Washington praying, a very religious man. He wasn't a very religious man. But this is the Protestant view of America as God's agent in the world. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. But that is the most popular of the homeschool textbooks, and and it is it would not be considered reputable history by it's like the museum that depicts the dinosaurs, and the museum of of Noah's Ark kind of thing. You have to really kind of ignore reality. But this is the textbook that I used for my class. This was Eric Foner, Give Me Liberty. I didn't use this big, heavy one. I used a abridged, briefer version. But this is Give Me Liberty. And the thesis of this textbook is that American history is a history of the development of liberty, that the history of America has been an expanding discussion of the meaning of liberty. And this is also by the same publisher, Norton. I think they published the two best textbooks. This is Emery Schei, A Narrative History of America, and also published by Norton. So these are my two favorites. And what I wanted to do then was to just share with you just a little bit about the Martin Luther, John Calvin, and the Protestant Reformation. So this is in what Schei has to say is that Calvin and Luther were the twin pillars of early Protestants, and over time, Calvin came to exert a greater influence upon religious belief and practice in the English colonies than did any other of the Reform leaders. His emphasis on humankind's essential depravity, his concept of predestination, his support for the primacy and autonomy of each congregation, and his belief in the necessity of a theocratic government formed the theological foundation for Puritan New England. So depravity of humans, predestination, and the absolute essential theological, you have to have a theocratic government. You have to have a government that takes into consideration that people are sinful, depraved, and need to be controlled by a Christian government that makes sure that women do not engage in use of birth control and things like that. So, so this is what I wanted to say a little bit about today, not only do I have a large collection of textbooks and things, but I also have spent a fairly considerable amount of time collecting material. And so this is a folder, my little folder on Martin Luther. And what I wanted to share with you from here is this is Martin Luther's Against the Jews and Their Lies, also sometimes referred to as Shem HaMaforsh. It was published in 1543. I got this copy. This is a pamphlet kind of thing. It was published by the neo-Nazis in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I got it in St. Louis. It was being handed out, because I used to go to Klan rallies and hang out with racists. And so a young boy comes up to me and he says, this is something been suppressed by the churches. Nobody wants you to know you're a Christian, right? You believe in, and I was actually, I've been to many churches, and I was going to a church in St. Louis, a Reformed Presbyterian church. These were good Christians and good Lutherans, and what I mean by good is that they did prison work. They ran a food pantry. They did all kinds of good things. They were basically tried to be as good people as possible, and I was meeting with the elders of this church, and they were reaching out to me and say, well, what do you think about Christianity? And I said, well, frankly, you were preaching on Martin Luther's "A Mighty Fortress is Our Lord," and Luther was an important Christian foundation of your church, right? And they said yes. I said, well, let me read to you a little bit from Martin Luther's own words. And I said that he said, first of all, that here in Württemberg, on the stone church, he said, we have carved into the stone a picture of a sow with some young piglets and some Jews who are suckling her. So this is a sow, and she's suckling pigs and Jews. And there is a rabbi behind the sow, and he raises the sow's right leg with his left hand. He pulls out his member, and he leans over and diligently contemplates behind the member the Talmud. So that's the church that Martin Luther went to in Württemberg, and he says that that as far as the Jews were concerned, there's no good Jews other than converted Jews. There we go. Okay, so let's stop there. So we'll see how that works. With just everybody gets a little buzz there. So he says that first, their synagogues or churches should be set on fire. Whatever does not burn should be covered up and spread over with dirt so that you may not be able to see this. It says, secondly, their homes should be likewise broken down and destroyed. Thirdly, they should be deprived of their prayer books, their Talmuds, and such idolatry and blasphemy. Fourthly, their rabbis must be forbidden under threat of death from teaching. Fifthly, passports and travel privileges have to be abolished for them. This is a work, foundation of German anti-Semitism, which led directly to the Holocaust, and it's no wonder. I mean, the animus in the development of Protestant Christianity towards Jews, but also this idea of the ultimate depravity of human beings, and predestination, and the need to have theological control over people's minds, thoughts, processes, and behaviors has been fundamental to the development of the American Republic. And here you see it. It just comes out. So what I wanted to leave you with this week was a thought about the importance of the theological foundations of the American Republic, the importance of the idea of predestination, the importance of some very disturbing, it's this cancel culture. I mean, these this is pretty nasty stuff, and yet um, it was never considered to be disqualifying. When I confronted the elders of this church, who were good people, uh, they had never heard of this. They weren't aware of it. And I said, you're not aware of it, but the little Nazis on the streets are. They're handing it out. And since you are not inoculating your congregations against this stuff, it's just that somebody confronts it and says, oh, I didn't know that Luther was such an anti-Semite. And now I understand that anti-Semitism is profoundly correct. So it's what you don't know that's going to come and kick you in the butt. And for this week, I'll leave it there. Let you think about some of the foundations of America. We were talking about two different things. One is predestination. Was it inevitable that we were going to end up here? And the other is the extent to which our faith has been entwined in these theological principles. And I think that thinking theologically is really important if you want to understand the gestalt, the world that we have created. So I'll see you next week. Have a good week and enjoy. Bye.